I want to ask you a little bit about where you've been surprised in the most recent quarter. Where have you been surprised about growth, in a positive sense, I mean, and where have you been surprised about wages? Give us an update on the things that are different this quarter from the one before.
Hi, good morning. Good to be back. Yeah, it was a pretty good quarter, I would say, and the strongest performance that we have seen is in Europe. Our top line grew by 11% in Europe, which is clearly an acceleration compared to the previous quarter. And it is very specifically visible in the industrial segment, which means blue-collar employees that we are placing much more. And that goes hand in hand with relatively stable wages in Europe. Whereas, for example, in North America, we see continued wage inflation, but much lower growth.
Let's just focus in on the European story. Anna and I were talking about this morning. We're looking at France and French consumer confidence. It's rising. There is still this very much strong Macron effect. And the question that came to our mind was, tell us what's changed since Macron came to power in France. Have you seen an acceleration? Have you seen a shift? What are the changes in France?
Well, we do see, indeed, the growth in France going up from 9% in the first quarter to 14% in the second quarter, so that's visible. It's, as I said before, driven by the industrial segment. And I have to say, I think the conversations that we do have in France are indeed more confident in terms of a better economic future. But these are anecdotal proofs only, nothing more than that. And we do see growth in the French market, also in the permanent placement business, which I think is specifically Randstad, because we apply technology over there. Our growth improved from 37% to 43%, so that is clearly an improvement. So across the board in blue-collar staffing, but also growth in white-collar staffing, in professionals and in permanent placement in that market, adding up to 14% growth for the quarter.
In terms of the conversations you're having in France, then, Robert Jan, how do you evaluate the president's chances of success in reforming the labour market? You must hear things all the time. Tensions expected to bubble up, I guess, as he tries to address some of these really difficult issues around labour market reform. What chances of success?
Well, I think a hero is needed in France because of the urgency that we can all see there. And don't forget that Randstad, apart from placing people, is also a big employer by itself in the French market. So we can see the difficulties, the complexities in the French market of operating the company smoothly. And we can only confirm that the urgency is massive. And I have to say, the elections have clearly put a lot of force behind somebody who seems to be willing to address it. He's made some specific statements also on an important item, which is the subsidies in the French market, which are relevant to low-end wages. And they have been confirmed to continue, maybe in another form, but still they will continue. And I think that's a relevant signal.
Robert Jan, obviously, the largest proportion of your business is in North America by revenue. You touched on it just briefly there in regards to the wages. Give us an update. I mean, we've had conversations with a number of CEOs who are telling us the US is at full employment and it's only a matter of time before wage inflation feeds through. Would you concur?
Yeah, we do concur, and we have been seeing wage inflation coming through now for the last quarters, which is like 2-3% on the underlying wages. So we can confirm that, certainly.
And more broadly in the United States, how does the US economy look to you as we sit on, as we debate seemingly constantly here at Bloomberg, you know, where the Fed moves next and whether we see rate tightening? How strong is the underlying picture in the US for you?
Well, for quite a few quarters, we have now seen the U.S. at relatively low growth, but please keep in mind that it started to grow at the very end of 2009, and since then it has continued. But, you know, we have some segments, for example, our IT business, which was growing 1% in Q1. It now is growing 2% in the second quarter. So it is sort of flattish. It's clearly not decelerating, but unfortunately also not accelerating.
One final question just before we let you go. The Netherlands is a considerable proportion of your business. There still is no government. 4 months after I stood on a canal in Amsterdam and went up to the capital, I mean, what impact is that having on business?
Well, Well, that's an interesting question. I don't think it has a lot of impact. I don't think, in general, governments can have a lot of impact unless it is a more centrally ruled country like France. But in the Netherlands, I don't think that is our biggest challenge. Our biggest challenge in the Netherlands is much more the pricing environment, and we are selective, and that is depressing our growth a little bit. But the government itself, as a civilian, I'd like it to be in place sooner better than later, because there are some tasks to fulfill, but direct impact on our business is not visible at this point in time.